What a glorious place. Seek freedom, and it will lie stretched out before your eyes.
We're recording again. If you have something to say,
No, I was gonna say going into the final dungeon.
yeah.
Because we do this a couple times. We're playing games because sometimes the ending does change our mind on stuff.
Yeah.
Go ahead and give out your going into the final dungeon. Give out some of your thoughts so far. Like overall, you liking the game?
So far, not my favorite Zelda. I think the ocean is still rather boring. I like the premise of it and what it could hold in the potential. It's just there isn't as much interesting content between them. It's a lot of just empty and just uninteresting spaces. And that'd be fine if every island that you went to, or like 4 out of 5 of every island you went to, had something really interesting on them. The problem is, like, the interesting islands that we're finding are like 1 out of 5 that are interesting. So it's like when you find spaces that aren't just empty, it's still like, oh well, I mean, what's here? Oh, it's just another pirate platform. So I'm gonna go up, I'm gonna kill maybe 1 or 2 bokoblins, and then that's it. There's not even a chest on there. There's a couple vases. So it's like, okay, I needed some more arrows, I guess, but I've never, even without getting the upgrades, like I haven't really run into areas where I'm like, oh, I'm really low on bombs, I need more bombs, or oh, I'm low on arrows. Like
you do need arrows. You were spamming arrows.
The closest I got to running out of arrows was in the big dungeon, where it was 50 floors. Even then, it's like I still didn't run out of arrows.
You just barely didn't run out of arrows. You got down to like 6.
But that was when I had a quiver of 60. I didn't have the 99. So if I got the 99, it was like, oh yeah, I'm never going to worry about arrows. The upgrades, I feel, are... I wish that there were more dungeons built for the other items that we get. Like the bracers that let us lift really heavy things. There's been 3 things so far that have needed the bracers that have been blocking progress. But even the ones that aren't blocking progress, it's like, okay, we've seen like 2 areas, one of which was the area which is blocking progress. So even then, that doesn't count. But it's like the bracers aren't being used very much. The leaf isn't being used very much. I think the most interesting islands that we've been to have been the main dungeons with the Korok dude and the bird girl. Those were the best parts of the game so far.
The sage temples?
Yeah, the sage temples, those I think have been the best part, which is also, I think, a little bit bad because you only get 2 of them in this game. You only get 2 sage temples.
Yep.
The little dungeons before, when we were getting the
pearls.
Yeah, that was nothing. They were nothing. It was nothing bites. It was just. I think Ocarina of Time is a better game than Wind Waker. I would say that I think Ocarina of Time is a better game than Wind Waker. I prefer playing Wind Waker over Ocarina of Time, but Ocarina of Time, going through the little area, like the little kid dungeon, then you have the adult dungeons. Every single one of them, I mean, you had a dozen of them that were interesting to go through. They each were using the concepts of puzzles and the enemies that you're in a lot better than what we've been given in this. Now, the last 4 dungeons, these might be some really rad shit, but I bet it's just gonna be like, oh, fight a few things. There's maybe a puzzle here or there. They're gonna be like 3 rooms max.
I think they're gonna be like 3 or 4. I think it's gonna be just like the Ganon's Tower was in Ocarina of Time, where it's like this is the theme dungeon. This is the theme.
Was the least interesting area of Ocarina of Time, in my opinion. You had 8 areas. You had a lot of them, but again, it was 8 areas of like go into these like 2 rooms, then you're done with this area. Now, it needed to be that quick and bite-sized, but going into this, you have half have those bite-sized areas, and it's just going to be like, oh, let's just fight some things. I think it's falling in. I think Nintendo themselves fell into the trap of, well, we need to fill content here. What are we going to do? Oh no, just throw a bunch of enemies in. People like combat.
Well, yes. Good.
And like Zelda has never been about combat. When I've been thinking about Zelda has always been, look at this world, adventure in this world, and do puzzles in this world.
There's 3 pillars, and they need to be balanced in a Zelda game for it to be perfect, in my opinion. And it's 1/3 each.
Yeah.
Combat, adventuring, puzzles.
Yeah. And right now, the adventuring has been a weak column. It's there, but it's been pretty weak.
It's not a third; it's a fourth.
The puzzles have been barely there, so I would say that is a crumbling pillar. And the combat is bloated. I think the combat's bloated.
That's you're starting to see a little bit why people like Ocarina of Time a lot, which is kind of interesting because I think they were so busy on making a big world with the water, and they put a little bit more oomph into the story for Wind Waker comparatively to Ocarina of Time and stuff like that. Just a little bit more, and you'll see why. The last dungeon does make it very clear that they put a lot more into the story. But Ocarina of Time was a lot more structured. Even if they did have to cut some content like the Light Temple and stuff like that, they still had stuff where it was like, Bottom of the Well was a dungeon you had to do as a kid. It wasn't a main dungeon, but you still needed to do it for the story. But it was still, you thought you were done doing a dungeon as a kid? Nope, here's another dungeon. Yeah. Spirit Temple, you had to do that as a kid and then as an adult.
Yeah, having the you have the same coin, and you have one side as a kid, one side as the adult. But you're going through it in completely different ways. And they were interesting dungeons with the way that you were going through. I'm still surprised that they were able to get that on a cartridge for the N64. They had very limited space. It is simply amazing. Now, has all of it aged the best? I would say no. I also don't have the nostalgia to see how it aged. I am seeing it in the worst light of I experienced Ocarina of Time for the first time in 2025. It's not going to hold up from 1996 or whenever it came out.
But you do see...
I see some great bones there.
You see some good stuff about Wind Waker.
Even though they don't have as much meat on them now, I'd still say Ocarina of Time has better bones than Wind Waker. Wind Waker has more meat on it.
More charm, too.
But it's got a lot more fat, too.
But it's got more...
They didn't trim nearly as well.
But they got a lot more charm on it than Ocarina.
They got a lot more charm. I like the charm. I like the setting better than Ocarina. But I think overall, Ocarina had you do more interesting things. Instead of saying, oh, here's an interesting world that we're not doing anything with, Ocarina was like, here's a kind of generic world where we're sprinkling in some fantastic little nuggets.
Yep. Stuff like the Forest Temple actually felt like a temple that was nestled in the forest, covered in vines. You had to do the ghost hiding in paintings thing, stuff like that. You had
the entire of... I love the Gorons.
Going through Death Mountain. We had
Death Mountain.
Freeing all the Gorons.
Getting the big Goron sword, doing all that stuff. The least interesting things, I think, were when we were in the city. It's like, there's just not really much to do in the city. But, no, Ocarina was a lot more charming, and I can see why you would be into so many other games, and why it would be a near-perfect game for a lot of people back then. But... Wind Waker, I can see why once you get past the really charming aesthetics of it and the look of it and the story is really fun, there isn't as much to go back to in this game.
Okay.
Because once you see it, I feel like this game is like you do it once, there isn't much reason to go back again.
Yeah. There's still a few, more than a few handful of islands that are the more difficult ones to do. Just like I said, I can't remember which ones they are, or I would direct them to you.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if I did direct you to them and then they were interesting, you would just be like, okay, I acknowledge they're interesting. Wish there was more of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, all right, so say there's interesting islands. I would say there's probably 6 interesting islands. On a grid of 7x7, you have 6 spaces in, what is 7 squared?
7 by 7 is 49.
Yeah. You have 49 squares. 6 of those are interesting.
Yeah.
It's not a great ratio. It's not a great ratio.
Yeah. Or yeah. But Wind Waker is still It's still pretty fun.
I'm not saying it isn't fun.
It's a good adventure.
Yeah.
Have you had better adventures? Yes.
Yeah.
But you had a lot worse adventures too.
Yes. Yeah.
For a game about sailing around, going through islands and stuff like that, I think it's doing pretty good.
I will say, going off of Ocarina of Time, I respected what Zelda was doing a lot more. But I can't say I was super interested leading into others. Now having Wind Waker in comparison to Ocarina of Time, I'm interested to see how differently they change things. If we go to Twilight Princess, if we go to A Link Between Worlds, if I choose to go back to
Majora's
Breath of the
Mask?
Wild or Trails of the
Tears of the Kingdom?
Tears of the Kingdom, I'm more interested in seeing what is going to happen.
Yep. Yeah, we can either move on to Twilight Princess next because the Wii U is not dusty. It's fine by me. Or we can do Link to the Past.
Well, the next game that we're going to be doing on your hardware is going to be Prime.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about like physically what's next. I'm saying the next Zelda excursion. Yeah. We could either do Twilight Princess or Link to the Past.
Yeah.
Either one would be really good. I think you're gonna like them because, like I said, Twilight Princess has some of the best dungeons in the games. Mm-hmm. I'd still give it to Skyward Sword because they were just more creative with how they did it. But that's also it's like. Oh, so you're saying Twilight Princess doesn't have creativity? It's like, no, it's like creativity in Twilight Princess, if I had to give it a number, is like an 8. And then Skyward Sword happened, that's a 9. Yeah. So technically, it's more creative. All right? That's all I'm saying. Majora's Mask has 4 dungeons. Yeah, it has 4 dungeons. They're pretty darn good dungeons.
Okay.
But they do sprinkle out. It's more about the world and obviously about the side quest by getting every single one of the masks. And that is a fun adventure to get all the masks.
Okay.
And then at the end of the Majora's Mask, you can, because I'm sure you've seen the stuff about the Fierce Deity Link and all that stuff, right?
No.
Okay. There's a super form of Link that you can get in Majora's Mask from getting the Fierce Deity Mask. Once you do all 4 dungeons and you go try to fight the final boss, you can go and fight the final boss, or you can give up 4 by. I think it's not 12 masks, but there's 4 different guys that you can give your masks to, and when you do that, they just go, here is a very hard version of the puzzles that you had to deal with in the dungeon that was themed around this guy and stuff like that. Like they do for this Ganon's Tower thing, but it's all completely optional, and because they're optional, they are some of the hardest bullshit you had to do on Majora's Mask. Oh my god. And it's like, it's not even like hard, like brain puzzling hard, but it's like controls wise. Ugh, man. It's fun. But once you do all that, then you can fight the boss. And if you do all that before you fight the final boss, it's a bit easier than just fighting the final boss at the gate. Yeah. But Majora's Mask is more about the world, the side quests, and upgrading your shit. Because that's another one of those Zelda games where you can't upgrade your sword. Okay. You have a level 1 sword, you can go through the entire game with just a level 1 sword, or you can get all the way up to level 3. And then I've already talked about to you the other day about Link to the Past, where it's got the first set of dungeons, and it's got a bunch more dungeons after that. It is hard, and I'm assuming it's been a while at least, so you do know that there's the light world and there's the other world for Link to the Past. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They do a really good job. You could tell when we play Link to the Past, you can be like, okay, so they were already trying to do the Ocarina of Time thing, where there's 2 different worlds that you have to do 2 different things on, and you kind of bounce back and forth to do the thing or whatever. Yeah, Link to the Past does a thing where it's like it does that a lot because the worlds are layered on top of each other. Yeah. And there is times where it's like, oh, I'm trying to get to this one dungeon in the other world. In the other world, I need to go through this part in the light world. Okay, I found a portal. I go through it. Now I got to go back to the other one, and then you just kind of weave through the worlds before you can get to the actual thing. And you were just like, whew, my God, am I here yet? Okay, here's the dungeon, finally. It's cool. It's good stuff. Their world design is really good. But they try to emphasize story a little bit more in Wind Waker, which I think it pays off. You'll see when you get to the end. I'm
interested. I'm still interested to see where this is going to end up. I will say I'm more interested to see how Wind Waker will end compared to how interested I was
In the middle?
story of Ocarina of Time ending.
Yeah, this is everybody's favorite Ganondorf, and you'll see why when we go through the final dungeon.
Yeah.
Because after this, they no, because even for Twilight Princess, they let him do a thing. I think, and then for Skyward Sword, I don't know. I don't know what I was saying with that tangent, but yeah, no, we'll see.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to get your opinion, so you had it on record.
Not like we don't do PTTs after these.
I know, but I wanted to, because sometimes it just changes. Sometimes it just changes.
All right.
Sometimes it just changes, Snark.